All right. Hi, everyone. So after already doing two of the popular pattern problems, we'll now move on to a third one and understand that in detail. Okay. So the next one that you will have over here would be something like this. Okay. So let's say if I give you a input like this. Okay, for example, for n is equal to 7, this should be your output. For example, I give you for n is equal to 5, right? This should be your output. Assume that it has been given in the problem statement to you that the input n will always be odd. Okay, because I would say over in this case, even n values won't make any sense and won't help you to get any pattern over here. Okay, perfect. Then let's get started now to solve this. The first idea is always to kind of create a box around this and debug this code line by line. So first of all, again, the total number of rows over here is equal to n. So if the value of n is 7, you have 7 rows in the output. The second thing is there are only stars over here. There's no concept of spaces, right? You just have to print stars and accordingly everything will be accommodated. The third thing would be that the first row over here has 1 star. The second row over here has +1 star from the previous stars. Okay, so initially if there was 1 star, then it's 2 star, then 3, then 4, and then the star starts to decrease, right? So it's like when the row is 1, 2, 3 and 4, the moment you reach the half row, right, after that the values of stars start to decrease, right? So in the very first half, you are always increasing stars by +1, but in the second half, whatever the value of the star was at the middle point, you started decreasing the number of stars by 1. Okay, so you have stars over here which are increasing first, and then the values of stars is basically decreasing, right? But no matter what is the value of n that you really take over here, the first row will always have 1 star. So that's kind of generalized over here, right? It is not really dependent on the input value n. Okay, so let's try to see how can we really use these observations for our purpose. So I will create another class which is pattern 3 over here. Okay, again, int value of n is, let's say, 7. So int t rows, total rows would be equal to n as well. And for the very first row, the number of stars is basically 1. And there's no role of spaces over here. Okay. So if we go by this idea, row is less than equal to the total rows and do row plus plus. Okay. Now what do is you do the work for the current row and then you prep for the next row. For the current row, there is only work for stars, and how many stars that you have to print equal to the value of stars variable over here. So if the star value is 3, you have to print 3 stars. If the star value is 4, you have to print 4 stars. So over here, you will print a star. Okay. And you will print all of these stars in this for loop in one single line. All right. Now, how do you prep for the next row? How do you prep for the next row goes by the fact that first of all, you take your cursor to the next line. Now you have to increase and decrease the value of stars. So you will put a condition over here when you are prepping for the next row. That is, if the value of row, okay, is basically less than or equal to total rows by 2. Okay, so the total rows is what, 7 over here, right? Or let's say in this small example, it is equal to 5. So when you are on basically row 1, and if you're going to the next row, you have to do a +1 to the stars. And if you are on row 2, right, and then you for the next row you have to do +1. Okay, but when you are on row 3, okay, then you have to do -1. When you are on row 4, for the next row you have to do -1. So only at the times you are at row 1 and 2, you basically have to do a +1 to the stars in the next row. Okay, so you do stars plus plus, otherwise you have to do stars minus minus over here. So basically for rows, if the value of n is, let's say, 7, that means for the row 1, 2 and 3, you will basically do number of stars plus plus for the next row, but for the row 4, 5 and 6, you will basically do minus minus. For the last row, it won't matter, because even if you do plus plus, you're not really gonna use it. Okay, and there you go, you have your beautiful pattern over here. Again, it's always good and better to try it for different scenarios, just so that to make sure it's handled for all different cases. Remember to keep this value as always odd in order to be able to fully prep your code according to the expectations. Okay, so this is how basically you would be asked to solve pattern problems. Okay, now just to kind of make things a little bit more interesting over here, sometimes in the interviews you're also expected to do like this. So the question would be that if the value of n is equal to 7, right, you would probably ask to kind of, instead of print stars, you might be asked to basically print the numbers over here. Okay, so it could be like this: 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, sorry, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1. So in that case, they would say, not for 7 in this case, the question would change a little bit, saying that if the value of n is equal to maybe 3 or maybe 4, right, you have to print this pattern. Okay, this could be anything over here. It could be 7 also, 3 also, and then it could be 4 also. Okay, but they will try to keep it generalized, and they will make sure that it is generic for every other example that they also take. But this is also sometimes expected for you to do, right, that instead of stars, you basically have to print numbers over here. For example, for n is equal to, let's say, probably 5, okay, or probably 2 also, the pattern would be this. Okay, so try to kind of take this as a takeaway problem, and also think how would you print patterns like this. It's very easy. You just have to do very small modifications. Instead of this star, you just have to kind of print the number with the very simple logic applied over here. Okay, and this is how you will be able to print those as well. Okay, and you will be able to get the output. I think here only, if like I'll show you also, I just wanted to kind of not trouble you all too much, but directly show also. So there you go. Okay, by just, instead of putting stars, I put CST, I was able to get the desired output. Right, this is just to help you to understand that it will be a very small change. You will hardly have to tweak a variable or so, and you can basically generalize. Instead of stars, you can generalize the pattern through numbers as well. Okay, so please make sure you kind of learn it this way as well. Again, these are just small modifications to help you assess better for the interviews. Okay, so I hope this pattern is clear as well. Thank you.